Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we have some flowers in the cut flower garden. I'm so excited. We still have a few more things to do, but it's about 90% finished, and like I said, I've already got some things planted. I cannot wait until this thing is just packed full of plants and flowers. I cannot wait to see what this turns into here in a few months. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Candace, and I built this 100% no-till, no-dig cut flower garden this year, and I also turned my vegetable garden from last year over there into a perennial cut flower garden. It is currently the middle of June, and I've already posted a May cut flower garden update as well as a vegetable garden update, but I wanted to go back all the way back to last fall and show you some clips of how I built this garden, what my thoughts are so far on doing this no-dig cut flower garden. So during this video here, I will be throwing up some clips and pictures throughout the video to show you, what it looked like in the beginning as well as, during the process, and just really give you all a detailed video of what we did to build it. And then I will show you some of the things that I've already got growing so far. And afterward, I'm going to show you my perennial cut flower garden. And then we will see if we have time to take a look at some of the other flower beds and containers I have around the house. What I did is I laid down cardboard, and then I laid down I'd say about 4 or 5 inches of compost. I used a compost calculator on the website of the company that I bought the compost from to figure out how much I would need to put 6 inches of compost on this entire space, as well as to build up where there was like a slope in the center there. Unfortunately, either the calculator wasn't very accurate or they didn't give me the yards that they were supposed to deliver, but it wasn't enough. Which isn't a huge deal. There was still enough to do about 4 or 5 inches, and there's going to be enough to build that up a little bit to where it's almost level. Right here I said that it's really not a big deal that there wasn't enough to do 6 inches on the entire cut flower bed, but I've since learned that it actually is. If you do not want to be spending hours and hours weeding this summer, then it is definitely worth it to spend the extra money to make sure you have a good 6-inch layer. I don't know what it is, but that few more inches really does, I guess they run out of energy by the time they, are trying to get past that 6 inches worth of compost. Because in the areas that only have a few inches, the weeds are clearly coming up all the way from the bottom, from underneath that cardboard and underneath that compost. But in the areas that have gotten the 6 inches of compost, the weeds that I pull there, they're clearly just sitting on top of the soil, and, they're clearly just weeds that have just blown in from the wind. I don't know if you can see, but there's more kind of wood chippy looking material in the pathways. That's another thing with the compost that we got delivered. Every time we have picked up compost there, it was really good, beautiful stuff. But when we got it delivered, it wasn't the best quality. So unfortunately, there was, all these large wood chippy pieces. And what I've done, every time it's rained, it's kind of forced all of the smaller particles down, and these have kind of sat on top. So I just keep raking those into the pathways and, trying to keep most of just the compost that's broken down into the actual rows. But there is still a lot of wood chippy stuff in the beds, so I'm hoping that doesn't cause too much of a problem. And I also should probably mention what I did. We had the pile of compost here, and what we did was we just kept taking shovelfuls and throwing it out here onto the cardboard. And then once we got a good amount, then we started leveling it down flat. We tried to just do it in rows at first, and that just wasn't working out. We needed something, we needed a layer of compost to hold the cardboard down, because if not, every time you stood on it, it would make a corner come up, and then you know, all the compost would go up underneath of the cardboard. So that was the best thing that I figured out was, you know, to do. And then once we got it all down, then I started raking it up, like hilling it up into actual beds. And then, like I said, I started putting just the wood chip stuff into the walkways, which the walkways were going to be compost, but just not as much of it. So, I mean, it kind of worked out because I think that will be better to have that wood chippy like material, especially when it's wet out here. This is my first 100% no dig garden, like laying it over the grass, not doing anything to kill the grass, just laying down the cardboard and then laying down the compost. We did do that bed no dig, but the previous owners had already cleared out most of the grass and tilled it like in the past. I've been told that the cardboard underneath will compost very quickly. As I've been planting, it has been still like intact, but it's like wet and broken down a little bit to where I don't think the roots are going to have any problem going through it. Because as soon as I like barely touched it with the shovel, it was like, you know, breaking apart. But we'll have to see as the season goes on. I planned out my beds and my walkways to be, the beds were going to be 3 foot wide, and then my walkways were going to be 2 foot wide, so that I could easily like put my feet on either side of the bed and then like bend over to plant in the middle instead of having to like keep going to one side then the other. But unfortunately, because of the way I had it like hilled up, I wasn't able to really do that. It's just too hard for me. I guess I'm too short. So that is one thing that is worth mentioning. If you do what I did, you know, hilling it up a little bit, that is going to make your bed end up like a little bit wider. So it's actually like 3.5 foot wide instead of 3 foot, which is a little bit of a stretch for my little legs. But not a big deal, especially now that I'm doing this walkway down the middle instead of having, you know, this large bed to walk around. I have this spot in the middle too. And even walking around, you know, that's still not that big of a deal, but it's just something worth mentioning, especially me having little ones where I can only do stuff when they are down for a nap, or when my youngest one anyways is down for a nap. I have to be quick and efficient, and that wasn't, you know, really efficient. I did have to replant a lot of these sweet peas. We got down to 21 degrees one night, and they got pretty damaged, as you can see here. But I left them just to see what they would do. And as you can see, we have new green growth coming up. So apparently the roots survived. It was just, you know, most of the leaves that got the damage. And then down here we have our snapdragons looking beautiful. We also had, oh my gosh, I thought that was a tomato hornworm at first. Again, the frost, that 21 degree night, damaged some of these. These I don't see any fresh growth from, so I think those are going to be goners. But amazingly, a lot of them were unfazed. I have lots of snapdragons to go in this bed. This entire half of this bed is going to be snapdragons. That half was going to be zinnias, but I'm probably going to have that half and that half zinnias, because this is taking up so much space for the walkway that, you know, was once going to be zinnias. I'm going to need more room, but that's okay because I have some things that didn't work out, like my bells of Ireland. I was going to have a lot of those. Those I didn't have very good germination with, and a couple other things. So I mean, it's going to be fine. I'll have the room. I planned for every inch of these beds though. Let me try not to create a shadow. So these first 3 dill plants here, they have really bad transplant shock because, for one, I have them planted really close together, and I had them in a little 3-inch pot, but also they just stayed in that pot for way too long. But everything else is looking really, really good. We've got some bishop's flower here, and then we have our crane red and crane white cutflower kale looking beautiful. I love the red. The white's pretty too, but I love the red. And that is all that I have planted so far over here. Let's go to the perennial bed really quickly. I've got lots of stuff out here in my yard I need to clean up though, so just ignore that. So here is our sad ranunculus. The sun's coming out now. I'm sorry, guys. You probably can't see very well. I'll try to come in closer. We have a few plants that are still going strong, like that one, those right there. But most of them, they were in trays like this, and they were in there for too long. I didn't have the beds prepped. I had to totally unbury the drip tape because it had come up from most of the bed, and I needed to rebury it, so I had to like scrape all of the compost away from it and then rebury it. And I also wanted to put a little bit more so that it stretched down here more, because before it only came to like right here and then went back around the edges. I have the soaker hose, I say drip, but it's actually soaker hose. I have the soaker hose around the perimeter, and then I have these two sprinkler hoses down the center. Yeah, I still had things to do on this bed, and so they just sit in those trays for just way too long. So I think that I damaged their roots whenever I had to like pull them away from each other, because they were looking so beautiful up until I ripped them apart. And then the Lysianthus, I think I have some rosetting going on a few of them, but for the most part, they're looking very, very good. I'm so happy with them. And I have some more babies in the house. I left them out on an accident, and we got a really bad rainstorm, and it like pounded the soil out of the trays. So a lot of them were just like sitting there like with no dirt around their roots. I covered them back up, and so far they still look okay, but I'm afraid a lot of them probably aren't going to make it. I just have a feeling, because these are such like finicky flowers. I feel like they're going to end up not making it. But I still do have some that are looking really good in that tray. So hopefully we still have quite a few that can be planted out here. So I'll have to see on those. But they were fun to grow. They were fun to learn about, and they weren't as hard as, you know, a lot of people say. So if anyone tells you, you know, if you're trying to start a cut flower farm, don't buy Lysianthus, just buy plugs. I won't say don't do it, but I will just say at least try to grow from seed, because it's not impossible like a lot of people say. They just want to be very, very wet compared to most seeds. Like most seeds, you would have to worry about them rotting if you kept them that wet, but the Lysianthus, they need that to germinate. And they take a little bit longer to germinate than most things. But other than that, I don't feel like it was very hard to grow them. It's just that they have different growing needs than most seedlings. But here we have our beautiful, beautiful, beautiful tulips. I'm so happy with these things. They're so, so beautiful. This just reminds me of a tropical sunset. I only have yellows and oranges right now. The pink ones bloomed, the pink and red and purple ones bloomed first. I have one pink one there, but all of those bloomed first, and I've already harvested those and made bouquets and gave those to my neighbors. So now all we have left are the oranges, yellows, and a couple of reds. I wish the sun would go back down so you could see these in more accurate colors, because the colors are just kind of blown out right now in the sun. I'll see if I can shade one out to show you. There we go. Isn't that just beautiful? If I can get my camera to focus. My husband accidentally dumped some containers that he didn't know had bulbs in them. I've got some iris here that my neighbor gave me. I've got broccoli and Brussels sprouts from last year that need to be pulled. They're beginning to bolt. And then I have 7 peonies on, excuse me, on either side, doing beautifully. We've also got morning glory and zinnias popping up from last year. I had lots of those in the garden last year. If you want to check out my garden tours from last summer to see what this bed looked like. These are a lot smaller because these bare roots were very, very puny. There we go. There goes the sun. Let me give you another look at these really quick. Aren't those just beautiful? The purple ones that I got, oh my gosh. I will pop some pictures up on the screen. Purple is my favorite color, and between those and the pink ones that had like the, it was kind of like two-toned, oh, they were so, so beautiful. I just realized I also have some Swiss chard from last year. Sending up new growth. Can't believe that wintered over. I've got some weeds in here popping up also that I need to take care of. Oh, and that's actually celery. I think that's celery. That one looks a little bit different than this one. I know for a fact I planted celery here last year. I just planted a couple seeds because I didn't know, I've never grown them before, and I didn't know how they grew, so I was like, I'll just plant a couple, because I'm not a big celery eater, but I wanted to grow a few, and it took like 2 months to germinate. I guess it was too hot. When it started getting colder out, they finally germinated, and then I got that one that popped up. But I've got carnations right here, as well as over here. As soon as I harvest all of these tulips, then the carnations will take over, and they won't, be competing, because the tulips will be long gone before those really start putting on growth. I just planted those a few weeks ago. And then I will see if I can give you a quick tour of the other containers and things I have going on around the house before my son wakes up from his nap. I unfortunately lost the audio for this little clip here, but oh my gosh, coming back and editing this little clip for this flower bed, I cannot believe the changes that has already taken place in this bed. I was just looking at it thinking, that I need to do more, that I need more things in here, that it's not full enough. But now looking back at this bed and seeing how empty it was just a few months ago is, oh my goodness, just really opening my eyes to the amount of work I have done in this bed. I'm going to try to quickly get, some of these videos edited and caught up, but I didn't want to just skip over these, these tours from these previous months so that you all could see the progress. And I'm glad, because I needed to see this progress also, apparently. The fruit trees in this video are just beginning to bloom and leaf out, and the amount of growth that these have put on already is just amazing. The roses are 4 times the size they are in this video. I have super petunias, Vista bubblegum, and silverberry all along the front in like a hedge that are doing beautiful. And then I've placed a bunch of like little extra seedlings that were extra from the cutflower garden in this bed, and it's really looking beautiful. I mean, I liked it, but I did feel like I needed to do more, and now that I'm seeing this, I'm a little more content. But that is going to be it for this video, guys. I really appreciate everyone for watching, and I will talk to you in the next one.